All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another fun-filled Silver Brush Facebook Live. Thanks for joining us, as you have been now for quite a few months at this point. We appreciate you. My name is Warren Flax. This is my mother, Deirdre Silver. She's the founder of Silver Brush. And as we promised you a couple of weeks ago, today is going to be all about oil painting. It's a topic that we don't often discuss, and we know that tons of you out there are oil painters. We're not cheating you on purpose, we promise. The reason why it's a little bit harder to do training for oils is because, as you all well know, it's a tough medium to work with. It gets messy, and it just makes it different. So we know that many of you have been anticipating this. You asked for this, and so we really hope that you get a lot out of it. And certainly, if you enjoy it, we'll do more of it in the future. And that's what this is all about. It's about your feedback and what's important to you. So we appreciate you all very much. And as we promised and as we've been doing, we have another giveaway. So this Facebook Live, what we're giving away, I'm going to bring it up close to the camera here. I'll bring this up a little closer. So this giveaway is this outstanding best-selling set of ours, the Silverstone. And this set is it's a $61 value. It's the ST1150 set. Our retailers sell this online all around the world, and we're going to give one of these away today. So make sure that you ask lots of questions. Basically, we go by participation, right? So folks that are
there are these are 5 brushes that are in the Silverstone set, and each one represents the different shapes that are in the Silverstone line. So it's really a very nice complimentary set, and if you're an oil painter, I think you'll enjoy it very, very much.
All right, so I think I'll just throw it over to you. I don't have anything unique and fancy to say this week in terms of introducing my mom. I mentioned she's the founder of the company. We've lectured all over the world about brushes, specifically for oils. Oil painters, some of the most famous portrait oil painters in the world in the last 30 years come to you for advice and expertise on their brushes, on their tools, and how to do that. And we're going to show you a little bit later on some of the most famous portraits in the world that have used silver brush, where the artists get the advice from my mom on what to do when it comes to their tools. And we'll share some of that famous work that's currently hanging in some of these amazing galleries around the world. So really, we want to tune in and pay attention here and get a lot out of this session. So I'll leave it to you.
First of all, welcome. It's very, very nice that you've joined us today. I really appreciate your time. And I hope you learn a little bit and get a little information. And I'm thrilled that you're here. I really am. So today, I'm going to talk about oil painting brushes. And there are a lot of brushes for oil color, as you know. But some of them perform better than others. And some of the characteristics of the brushes bend better for artist brushes, better for oils than they do for acrylics and for watercolors. I'm going to start today with our Grand Prix series. I started with Grand Prix more than 30 years ago. And I took a big chance bringing this into the United States because there was nothing at this level of quality in the United States at that time. This is, I'm going to say some key words and then I'll explain them to you. This is an interlocked deep natural flag, 100% chunking white bristle series. What I've done is I've come out with some very, very unique shapes, some sizes that I will also introduce you to. And so you'll see what makes the Grand Prix series so prized in every artist toolkit. There's some very famous people that have helped me with these brushes in terms of the right length out, in terms of what the fine artist needs, what the portrait painter needs. Here's we have 3 different lengths, filberts. As you can see, these are all the same sizes. I'll make sure they're all the same sizes. And we have a traditional, I don't know if you can see that. Yes, you can. So we have a traditional filbert. That's the normal length out. But then we also have a long and an extra long. And that was brought to us by some very, very famous wonderful artists. So here is the traditional, that's the one over here. This is the long, and this is the extra long. When I came out with the Grand Prix series, a very famous artist in Buckhead, Georgia, by the name of Tom Nash, he suggested that I come out with an extra long filbert. Not so long that the filament bends over when they're using it, but just enough so that they can do that long reach with that particular series. And then this particular one, this is a little bit shorter, about 20% shorter than the extra long. That was dictated by Nelson Shanks. And Nelson had me come out with this particular length out because it just worked really well in his hand. It was very comfortable, it was a very comfortable grip. And he was able to get those marks that he really preferred on his portraiture.
Maybe you could tell a little bit about who Nelson Shanks is.
Well, that's a good question. Nelson Shanks was America's foremost portrait painter. He unfortunately passed away, I think it was in 2015. And he was a great help to me when I started Silver Brush, and actually throughout the length of time that he was alive. And Nelson's school that he started on his own with his wife, Leona, is named Studio Incominati, and it's in Philadelphia. It's a premier school, and really some of the top-notch portrait painters in the world go there now for realism painting. Anyway, so Nelson has a worldwide following. He had painted portraits of a famous opera singer like Pavarotti, Luciano Pavarotti. He also did Presidents Reagan, Bush, Clinton, and the George W. Bush, I believe. I believe that. No, this is another artist. This is John Howard Sandon. We'll talk about this in a little bit. But so the Grand Prix has a very, very long history of painting some of the foremost important people in the world, certainly famous and celebrities, and so it has quite a following. What makes it better than all of the other white hog bristle brushes that are on the market? Well, the first thing is you get a nice long length out of the hair. It's a chunking white hog bristle, which means that it's cured and dressed and cleaned in a place in China called Chongqing. And that's all they do there. And they only deal with the very finest level hair for hog bristle. And they clean it and they cure it. They have a little baking and you get all the parasites off of it. And that's this hog bristle. So that's one of the first things. Something else that makes this really quite remarkable is that we only use natural tips at the end. So that's called interlocked. So interlocked means that the hair is always going to go in one specific direction. And interlock kind of looks like this. If you looked at it on the bottom, it looks like this. No matter how hard you work with the brush, no matter how much you try and destroy this brush, that head is always going to go back into its original shape because of the interlocked filaments. So the hair is groomed so that it goes like this and put together, and then it's glued on the bottom, and then it's put right in here into the ferrule. Then the ferrule is glued inside, and then the hair is glued inside the ferrule, and then there is a plier that holds this down. We actually crimp this so that it holds the hair in place. As I said, this is a interlocked, deep natural flagged filament hog bristle brush, which means it's going to hold oil color beautifully. It really is. Deep natural flagged, what's the big deal with deep natural flagged? You actually could probably see that better here. You can see that the hairs go out into a V shape at the very tip, sort of like when your hair gets very long on your head. It's very, very long here. That means you get two different surfaces to paint on, and it holds twice as much color. So we prize the natural hair. We never, ever, ever cut the tips. We never, ever, ever cut the tips, and neither should you. You're paying for these naturally flagged, natural tips. That's one of the real benefits of this particular hair.
Just make sure, when I take the camera back here, you need to speak up a little bit because the microphone's farther away.
Sorry.
You can't quite hear you as much.
Okay. So when you're using this particular brush, you're going to see that you have marvelous wear resistance. What does that mean, marvelous wear resistance? It means as you're using it on this very rough surface, it's not going to wear out like a lot of other brushes. So I've got actually some color over here. I've got oil color over here, and I'm going to make it kind of loose with a little bit of linseed oil, because I'm used to working with water-based paints. I'm not used to working with oil-based paints. And I'm used to working very, very wet on wet. So I'm going to just do a little bit of painting here. And one of the things that you're going to see is how well this holds the color. There is nothing better than natural hair in painting. There really is not. We've come out with fabulous synthetic fiber, but in terms of holding color, making it long-lasting, there is nothing like natural fiber. So our Grand Prix is going to last 2 to 3 times more than any other hot bristle on the market, just because of all the natural ingredients that go into this. So you've got deep natural flags, you've got interlock, and you've got the finest brush makers in the world taking between 10 and 15 minutes to make each head, which is remarkable when you think about mass production and everything is done in seconds and things are just flying off the conveyor belts, and there's no handling, there's nobody doing anything. That's not so with this brush. This is made by hand, this is put together by hand, and the end result is that you'll have this years and years and years. This is the Grand Prix, and as I said, we have 3 different lengths on the filbert, the traditional, the long, and the extra long, and we also, of course, have it in flats and brights and browns, all very, very popular sizes and shapes. We have also, as Warren mentioned earlier, some of the most famous portrait painters in the world who have used these brushes, and we make actually brush sets for them. One of the sets that we're really excited about these days is Michael Shane Neal. Michael Shane Neal just finished some of a great portrait, and this is a brand new painting. This is just going into the Smithsonian National Gallery, and this is Congressman John Lewis, who unfortunately just passed away recently. It's, as I said, by Michael Shane Neal. Shane used Grand Prix traditional filberts. He used Silverstone fans and Renaissance brights and cat's tongues. And I have them here today so that I can show you the different brushes that he used to paint Congressman John Lewis. Here you go, one.
Do you want to show any others?
Well, what I do want to show, we could show another one.
Okay.
This is a very famous painting by Nelson Shanks, who I mentioned earlier. This is Lady Margaret Thatcher. She's a former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom back in the early 80s. We do 4 sets for Nelson Shanks, brushes that he curated and he picked out of our line. And this is done with Grand Prix long filberts, our 1414S background brush. That's a wonderful hog bristle background brush. Renaissance cat's tongues and flats. The Renaissance are pure red sable, and that's some of the brushes that he absolutely loved. So you can see the quality of that work that has used Grand Prix brushes, and we're very proud to tell you that Studio Incaminati has been carrying these Grand Prix brushes for many, many years since they opened. The next series I want to bring to your attention, for oil color again, is our Silverstone. Silverstone is a top-notch series. It truly is. As I said, this also has deep natural flags. It's interlocked, and you're probably saying, well, if it's deep natural flagged and interlocked, what makes this different from Grand Prix? The difference is the length of time that the brush maker has apprenticed to paint and to make the brushes, and typically an apprentice takes about 7 to 8 years to make the Grand Prix brushes. They're so expert, and they're really partial to just making Grand Prix, and they actually don't make the Silverstone series. It's different brush makers. These are excellent, excellent brushes, and they're about 20 to 30% less expensive than the Grand Prix. So if you're on a budget and you feel that you really want a very, very high quality hog bristle brush, I would recommend first starting with our Silverstone. You're gonna have a wonderful painting experience. It's gonna last and be very durable for years on end. But it's quite a bit less expensive than the Grand Prix. Now, one of the advantages of the Silverstone that we were able to do, look at the size of that, we can do that in a jumbo filbert size. And who uses these brushes? Well, the late Everett Raymond Kinsler was a famous portrait painter, and he did notables like Tony Bennett and Katharine Hepburn and so many other notables. And he loved the Silverstone series. And also our very famous John Howard Sandon loves the Silverstone series too. We do brush sets for him as well. Also another famous portrait painter. And I think Warren showed you the portrait of George W. Bush and his wife Laura. John Howard Sandon painted both those portraits. And this is, and here you go, here's Laura Bush. And this is the official portrait donated to the White House. And John was using Grand Prix series, Silverstone, Renaissance, Red Sables. And this is the portrait of George W. Bush. Same thing, John Howard Sandon, Silverstone, Grand Prix, and Renaissance series. So you can see that quite a few notables love to use these brushes. And once again, this is got deep natural flags. It's interlocked on the inside so that it always goes back into its original shape, no matter what, no matter how much scrubbing you do. And I'm going to put this in oil color, and I'm making it wet with linseed oil. I like to work wet. I don't like to work dry. And I know that that's probably a lack of my education in oil painting, but
We have a good question here.
sure.
Where did it go? Hold on. It was from Noeletta, a former prize winner of ours, actually.
Oh, wonderful.
Noeletta's asking, what brush would you recommend for a first-time oil painter?
Actually, I'd start with the Silverstone. I think that's
The
an
one in your
economical way. This is the one I'm using right now. It's an economical way to get started. If your teacher, though, says to you to buy Grand Prix, then do what your teacher says. I'm always looking for, how to make things as economical for the artist as possible. But if your teacher wants you to have the ultimate painting experience, then you really should work with the Grand Prix. And if you're on a tight budget and you say, well, wait a minute, I can't buy 1,000 brushes, which we understand, buy one of the Grand Prix and buy a couple of the Silverstone. It's just remarkable, the wearability, the usage. It's just a magnificent brush, and I know you'll have a wonderful painting experience. Okay, so this is the Silverstone. Silverstone is interlocked. Remember I told you the hair is always going to go like this. It's interlocked inside the ferrule. And like Grand Prix, it has a triple epoxy barrier within the ferrule. Very important, because we know that when you stop painting, you put your brush like this, which you shouldn't really do. We would prefer that you push your brush like this. What happens then is that the medium and the solvent and everything goes inside the head. So we do everything in our power to try and make sure that the paint or the solvent never goes on the handle. Because I'm sure you've all experienced cracked handles, and none of us wants that. So we try and be very, very intensely careful about making sure that the paint and the medium does not go on the handle itself. And the handle goes up to about here. Let's see if I can show you that over here. And then the moisture can go in if there was no epoxy barrier. But because there are three, the handle's very, very well protected. And one of the things that's a good hint, always put your brushes flat, or if you can, try and get it so that the head goes down. That's really very important. That way the brush doesn't get damaged while you're using it. And at the end of each and every single session that you have, make sure you clean it. Now I use odorless solvent, and I only buy my odorless solvent at the art supply store. That's the only place you should really buy any of the mediums, because it's the only thing that really is can really damage a brush. These big box stores that say they have odorless solvent, they can really damage a brush. Not as much. Well, it will damage the oil painting brush. And this is what happens when you use a really poor quality odorless solvent cleaner, it dries out the lanolin. So that you have to figure out a way to put moisture back into the filament on the brush itself. It's not an easy thing to do, and that's why I really recommend that you don't use any solvent at all from the big box stores. Go to your art supply dealer, and you know you will probably pay a little bit more for it, but it's really worth it. In this particular instance, it's really worth your time and the extra money.
So you did have some questions about care for the brushes when it comes to oil and cleaning them,
Sure.
which you're addressing right now. So if you wanted to expand on that, now would be a good time.
Cleaning them.
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing you can do with brushes at the end of a painting session is clean the paint out. So that's one of the things that I'm doing right now. I'm trying to clean the paint right out of the brushes. What happens to, especially oil colors, well, acrylic colors really tough on it too. When you're painting really hard and you're getting a lot of paint in it, the paint can go into the ferrule. And I'm sure we've all seen, you know, the hair going all over the place and it's not closing again, because what happens is you get paint in the ferrule. And there's also a couple of products on the market that actually are not very good. And I've started getting a number of complaints about one of them, and I can't recommend it any longer. Because what happens is it's not getting the paint out of the ferrule. So what happens is, what's that? It's our dog. What happens is the hair starts to go like this. It splits. The hair starts to split like this, and it almost makes it so difficult for the artist to use that. So what I do, so this is linseed oil. I use that as the medium. You can see it right now. It's very clean, and I'm using an odorless solvent to clean up the paint off of here. And I wipe it off very, very carefully. Now, at the end of the paint session, I may actually take some of the Master's brush cleaner, and I use that also to clean this, take the paint out of the brush hair itself. That is the Silverstone, that is the Grand Prix. You will not go wrong buying either one of those. These are sold online, these are sold through stores, and I know stores are opening now, and art supply stores, like our friends up in St. Paul, Minnesota with paint, and Azel's Art Supplies opening all over the country.
Porch in Oklahoma.
Porch.
We had
Yes,
someone from
Porch in
Oklahoma
Oklahoma.
asking
Hi,
for
how
Bill
are you?
Porch.
They're great people. They really are. They're great advocates of ours, and we love them a lot. We also, Arts and Craftsman is opening up again, and I think they have 10 or 20 stores open again at this point. Please go to them. And these are all brick and mortar stores. Jerry's Autorama has 15 stores, and they're all opening again. So you've got a lot of choices now who to get your art supplies from. This is our fan brush, and of course we sell these by the millions every year. Ours is a better fan than the majority of those that are out there in the marketplace. What makes it better? Well, one of the things we do is we actually use a keyhole over here. Let me see if I can make you a drawing of that. So okay, we could just show you like that. See the keyhole? If you look at your fan brush, you're going to see that, especially if it's my competitor, what they do is they just cut it out and they just smash it back. So you have a very sharp edge over here. What does that do? It starts to cut the hair as you're using the brush. So you actually might destroy your own brush with my competitor's fan because it's very, very sharp. And one of the great advantages of using a silver brush is it's always cut appropriately so that you never ever hurt the brush hair at all. And you can see we have that even in the small size. You can see that's even in the small size. So that's what makes a better fan brush. Just a little bit of education for you. Again, we've got natural tips. These are double tips so that you've got the natural flats, and it's also, of course, interlock. So you get a beautiful, beautiful brush. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of linseed oil. Let's put a little bit of oil color, and you can see that it holds its shape. Now, of course, what do we use fans for? We use it mostly for grasses. We use it for, building texture on a surface. And not everybody uses fan brushes. We have so many different shaped brushes that there's just a myriad to choose from. But if you're using oil color and you want something that is going to give you a brass type look, what else can you do with this? Well, this brush is great for Santa's beard, for hair.
Yeah, speak up. It's still hard to hear from
I'm
this
sorry.
distance.
It's great for Santa's beard and for hair and for anything else where you need small little stroke line. A best friend to landscape painters. Put that again into odorless solvent. And be careful with the odorless solvent. We recently discovered that there's an odorless solvent out there that actually has turpentine in it, and it's really not an odorless solvent. So you get some of the smell, and you also get some of the problems that you have with turpentine, with synthetic fiber, and it starts to melt and curl the hair. So do look at the ingredients when you're purchasing odorless solvent, because that's part and parcel of keeping your brushes in good shape. So our Silverstone, as I said, comes all the way out to very, very large size. This is a size 20, and that's in the filbert. And people do bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger size portraits. So this is some of the brushes that we have for oil color. Of course, they all come with rounds as well as brights and flats. One of the things I did want to show you was, and I showed this last time, but I thought this works again. Probably one of the most common questions in an art supply store is, what's the difference between a bright and a flat? Here's the difference. The bright is a shorter length out. The flat is a longer length out. So the bright is excellent for controlling strokes. Excellent for controlling strokes because it's shorter and it's not going to hold as much paint. But the flat holds more paint because of the length, and you'll be able to have much longer strokes. So we typically see landscape painters, using flat brushes because they're doing very long strokes. They're painting mountains and water and everything else, sky. That's the major difference. That's the only difference between brights and flats. Okay?
Question, and I did address it in writing, but I think it'd be good if you discussed it as well. Is it okay to use the same brush for both acrylic and watercolor and gouache?
Yes, I don't see a problem with that because you're going to clean up with water, and that probably is never going to be a problem. The problem comes in when you're using oils and then you want to convert it to acrylics. Here's the problem. We've just used these brushes in oil color. I put it in linseed oil, and that's a medium, and then I cleaned it up with an odorless solvent. Well, now I've got all that solvent in the hair, and it's natural hair, so it gets absorbed. I would not put this in watercolor now. I wouldn't put this in acrylic color because you've got the solvent in there. It's soaked in there. And even though you probably say, well, I clean my brushes better than anybody else in the world, certainly better than me, and I'm sure you're absolutely right, I still wouldn't use it for acrylic color. Gouache, watercolor, acrylics, they all are water-based, and they are just fine to use intermingle with one another. Now we have a series called Golden Natural that is a multimedia brush. You can use this in oil color, you can use this in acrylic color, you can use it in watercolor, gouache, whatever you're doing. But the one thing I do have to warn you is if you're putting this in oil color, which I'm going to do right now, that's it, just leave it in oil color. Don't use it anymore in watercolor because you're going to have solvent in it, and it's extremely difficult to clean out. The advantage of Golden Natural is that it has a great deal of animal hair in it and golden Taklon, and it has a whole new look to it. I love this new look, and it will work very, very well in oil color. So let's do that right now. Now I have used this brush in watercolor, but now that I'm using it in oil color, I will be able to go back to oil color. Okay? So here's the oil color. I put in a little bit of linseed oil, and now I'm going to show you how beautifully it works in oil color. The most important thing is not to allow the filaments to melt. Synthetic filaments can easily melt in turpentine. So what you want to do is clean it up in an odorless solvent, which is what I have over here. And the smell isn't bad at all. So here I am with on my canvas using Golden Natural. And if you've tuned in before and you've seen me working with acrylics and you've seen me working with watercolor, it's the advantage of Golden Natural. It will work in any media that you're working in. And that's the great thing about it. I really find that there's some great gouache on the market today. Very interesting looking artwork that's coming out of a lot of folks. And that's the opaque watercolor. And it really covers a lot of surface, it covers a lot of different things. And I can understand why people really like it a lot. But now I've used this in oil color, and that'll be the end of this because I'm going to leave this in oil color from now on. It cleans out beautifully. And that's our Golden Natural series. Okay, so here, I'm going to work something else. So this is, I'm just using canvas panels and canvas boards because that's the best thing for oil color. If I was going to use oil color on paper, it would just bleed into the paper. So I actually don't demo with that. Okay. So we showed you Golden Natural. Let's look at some more brushes for oil color. And again,
Do Ruby Satin next because you had a question about that.
sure. This is Ruby Satin.
The question was about the difference between the two hog bristle brushes versus the Ruby Satin.
Okay, Ruby Satin's 100% synthetic fiber. So what does that mean? This got a chisel edge, a very nice chisel edge, very sharp chisel edge, which we make sure that it comes to the chisel edge. But if you put Ruby Satin into turpentine after you're using it in oil color, it'll begin to melt. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when you see hair curl, that means it's in turpentine and it's melting, and there's nothing you can do to get that out. Now you will see me, I don't know if you've seen me, use boiling hot water method that absolutely straightens hair out when we're working with it. But a lot of times when you put it in turpentine, a synthetic fiber, it really just destroys the brush. That's the major difference between them. Ruby Satin feels wonderful in oil color. It really does. It's got a very nice feel to it. Again, I'm going to give it a little bit of linseed oil over here, and let's use that in oil color. I only have the two colors of oil color. I realized that today as I was starting to do this demo. But you can see that it really holds a lot of color. And for those of you that like to work with a very smooth feel to it, without having any grain or anything like that, lots of times the synthetic fiber is really wonderful for you. And that's this one. And then, of course, there's our Bristolon that's stiffer, and you'll be able to get much harder strokes. Let's look at that for a second, too. This is the Bristolon. This is much stiffer. And for those of you that like a really stiff brush, this is perfect. And you can use it in oil color, but again, it's got to be an odorless solvent, and you're going to leave it in that. You're going to leave it in oil color from now on. You're not going to go back and forth to acrylic oil and all of that. So this is Bristolon. It is very stiff, and maybe we should. Oh, Warren's going to show that to you. Why don't you show that to the folks?
So again, we shared this a few weeks ago, but this just shows silver brush, the synthetics, which are the most stiff versus which are the softest. You see at the bottom the crystal, the ultra mini, the silver white, and the jumbo that's gold. Those are the softest brushes that we have in synthetic. And the stiffest at the top, you see Bristolon is the very stiffest, and Ruby Satin comes in just behind that. So this gives you a sense when you're looking at these of which ones are best suited depending on your style, what you prefer.
Very good, thank you. All right. So you can use these synthetic fibers, especially silver brush synthetics. Remember, the whole trick is what you clean it up with. If you're using an odorless solvent from the art supply store, then you won't have a problem. If you buy something at a hardware store, there's no guarantees.
Good question here from Chris. I inherited brushes from my mom that she had used for oil painting, is there any way to get them into a usable condition again? I assume by the way Chris is writing that they're hardened.
Right. Well, the best thing for you to do, Chris, there's a couple of things, and I'm assuming it's more than a year that they've been like that. So one of the things you can do is put it in some boiling hot water to...
Well, it's oil painting.
I understand.
Okay.
But put it over here, go up to the center of the ferrule, like that, and put it in there. That might start to soften and loosen the filament. However, there's no guarantee it's actually going to come out. The next thing I would do is I would put it in odorless solvent and see if you can get some of the paint out of there. It probably dried on. The biggest challenge for you is to get the paint out of the ferrule. That's what the hot water's for. If you can melt the paint that's in the ferrule and get it to come out, you take a nice clean lint-free cloth and you keep pulling it out. You may actually be able to get it to work, but you've got to give it, you've got to try and work out that paint that's inside the ferrule. And the best way I know of is to put it in boiling hot water to about here and keep on doing that. Keep on dipping it. Now, if this isn't the first time that you've come to this Facebook Live, you've seen me do that any number of times. Keep on dipping the brush in and seeing if you can get that paint to loosen up in the ferrule. Once that happens, you'll see rainbow colors coming out, and just keep pulling it off. You know, you can go back to it several times and keep trying to do that and see if you can get it to work that way. It does take time, but you know, they're sentimental to you, and I don't blame you for wanting to try and get the paint out of there. Once you get it out of there and you see that you can get it to move a little bit, try using a little bit of cleaner, some of the paint cleaners. Try putting that on there to get it to soften up, and you know, it might become flexible enough that you'll be able to use it again. I certainly wouldn't throw them away. I would make it my hobby. I would go back to it over and over again to see if you can get something going. Lots of good, brush cleaners out there in the art supply store. Go to the art supply store, and they're going to have a bunch of different things for you to try. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. Sometimes it stays very, very stiff and you can't get it out. But a lot of times I have seen people who have worked out the paint after a while, and it becomes usable. The key thing is that it's not over a year old. That's the best way to get them clean.
Here's a good one. Is it okay to leave the brushes in water overnight
Never.
to soften the paint?
Never. Never. Let me say that again. Never. Because this is what happens. You leave it in water overnight, and what's going to happen? You're going to crack the handle. And then you're going to be really aggravated with yourself. You really are. Because there's nothing worse that handles don't like is getting water inside here, inside the ferrule. It goes into the handle, and you put it like this, and the handle starts to crack. Never, ever leave the brush in water overnight. Never, never leave brushes in any kind of moisture overnight. I've gone into artist studios, I can't tell you how many times, and I'll see brushes laying like this in some sort of fluid. And I always go over to it, I take it out, and I start cleaning the brush. Even while I'm talking to the artist, and it's the first time I've met them, they say to me, I shouldn't do that, should I? And I said, no, you never should do that. You want to get the brush out of this fluid, and you want to clean it like this. This is the best way. Get a nice, this is lint-free towel, and you just want to clean it like that. Keep it out of the fluid. One thing I'm going to show you, and I just made a mess over here, is some of our Pure Red Sable brushes. Now we have a very famous brush that everyone seems to really love, and that's cat's tongues. I started doing cat's tongues many, many years ago for the wild fowl market, and they were doing beautiful, beautiful duck feathers with our cat's tongues. And there are still some people out there that do that as well. So you get this marvelous feather type of feeling. But we've also graduated to long handle, which has become a runaway bestseller for us. And all those famous artists that I mentioned before, including, and also adding to that Leslie Adams, a wonderful artist, portrait artist out of Toledo, Ohio, and she got commissions up the yin yang. Jamie Lindholm, she also uses our cat's tongues, and she's a wonderful artist out of Colorado. But one of the things that the cat's tongue does, it gives you that marvelous feather-like, flower-like feeling with the brush. And of course, this is just an untreated canvas. I just took the cover off of it, and you can get that edge that you love so much with a cat's tongue. And we do sets for the late Daniel Green, and we do nothing but, he loves our cat's tongues, and we do a special set just for cat's tongues for him.
Question about a cat's tongue in the Ruby Satin series.
Well, just so happens.
We're working on it.
We are working on that. Isn't that wonderful? I'm so glad you asked. So we have been working on it, and this is some samples of the upcoming Cat's Tongue in the Ruby Satin series. That's going to be our series 2510. We're not sure if we're going to be doing it in long and short handle. Here's the short handle, and here's the long handle.
Well, you're showing everybody, and you can't take it away now.
Well,
We'll have to see if people want to buy it.
Is let's see if
We're trying it. This is prototypes, everybody.
these are
You're
prototypes.
literally seeing something that doesn't even exist yet. So,
Right.
good question.
We know from our experience with other series how well the cat's tongue does, and we know people absolutely adore it. Now, I had a cat's tongue silver silk here a minute ago. What did I do with it? Let's see if it's over here. Here it is. I got it. Here it is. This is in the line now, and we have look at that cat's tongue. Look how beautiful that is. That's got a beautiful cat's tongue. Lauren's going to bring you close by so I can show it to you. We have a cat's tongue that's in the silver silk. We have 2 sizes in that now. And I'm thinking seriously about putting it in the Ruby Satin series as well. That'll be in size 4 and 8, maybe both the long handle and the short handle. So that is on the agenda. We are working on that right now. And another surprise that we may also have a cat's tongue in the Bristle-on series, in both the long and the short handle. And you know, that's a stiffer filament, so you'll be able to use that in very, very stiff synthetic paint, like acrylics and heavy-bodied acrylics, anything like that. I got a kick out of somebody recently who used our Bristle-on triangle brush, and he said it was just the bomb. I said to Warren, what's a bomb? I didn't know. It means it's the greatest brush he's used for that particular technique. So these are also cat's tongues in the Bristle-on series. And we're planning this probably for 4th quarter this year. That means
A lot of hearts on this. I think we probably should go forward with it.
with
With the cat's tongues.
for
I think for both, right,
both?
everybody? The
so you
Bristle-on.
guys like it? You know what? That helps us make decisions about what we want to do. And that's really, I appreciate your letting us know.
And we're here for you. So if
Yeah.
you all want something, we'll do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want it, there's no sense in us doing it. So it's all about you guys.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. That's a very big help for us. It really is. So I also want to show you, and I know we've got to watch our time.
Yeah, we gotta give away these brushes
We
here.
have to give away brushes, and of course we have more brushes. We also have our mottlers, which long handle mottlers.
That's our next Facebook Live. Show
Oh.
everybody.
Our next Facebook Live is August 27th at 12 noon, Eastern Daylight Time. So please join us again. Send us your questions, send us anything that you want to know something about. We'll be glad to help you. One thing more I wanted to tell you, and then Warren's going to do the set.
Oh yeah, this is exciting too, guys.
This
you're
is
seeing a
very
lot of new stuff.
exciting. This is also very exciting. So we have new packaging that we are just starting to work on right now, and we hope to have this also in the 4th quarter. This is
So later this year.
later this
later in
year.
2020.
It's October, November, December. That's the 4th quarter. So this is a ruby satin set. This is a silver white set, and this is a mop set. These are just prototypes, so some of the packaging is not perfect the way it's going to be when it's finished, but you'll see those on online as well as in your local brick and mortar store. Okay,
One other question, somebody wanted to see the really large filbert. They wanted to see this big
This
fat
is-
one.
this is a size 20, and you know, if you can't find it in your local store, this is the item number is 1103, size 20. It's a Silverstone filbert. I believe it's one of the largest in the market today. Again, it's got the beautiful dressed hair. It's clean. We've got deep natural flags on it. It's interlocked, made extremely well, and you know, it's for your taking. We'd love to have you buy it and experience a great, great brush.
All right, so we're ready. Let's give away some brushes here. So this awesome Silverstone set is going to go to Ashley Danielle Storer.
Okay.
So Ashley, please send us a direct message via Facebook with your, so we can get your address, and we will send that off to you. Congratulations. And everybody,
Congratulations.
please continue just participating. We're so happy that you're here. We enjoy seeing you and talking with you. So we're going to see you all again on the 27th. And we'll be back to watercolors on the 27th. And also we're going to get into some very creative shapes. I know one of the topics you wanted to do was how to use specific unique shaped brushes, because we have so many unique shapes. So on the 27th we're going to get into that as well. Congratulations to Ashley, and thank you everybody.
Ashley.
And we will
Thank
see you all
for coming
soon.
today.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for your hearts. It really is helpful.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.